Before Janis Joplin died, she did something most people still don't know about. She made sure the woman who helped shape her voice would no longer lie in an unmarked grave. This is not just a story about Janis Joplin. It's a story about pain, memory, and the women whose voices survive long after their bodies are gone. Because sometimes the deepest tribute is not another song. Sometimes it's refusing to let the world forget who sang first. Before Janis Joplin became Janis Joplin, she was just a lonely girl in Texas trying to understand why the world felt so cold. Port Arthur was not built for girls like her. It was built for order, for rules, for expectations, for a very specific kind of womanhood. Pretty, polished, quiet, controlled. Janis was none of those things. She was emotional, restless, too intense for the rooms she lived in, too loud for the people around her, too strange for a town that liked its girls easy to explain. And when the world makes a girl feel like there is no place for her, she starts listening for other voices. That is how Janis found the blues. And somewhere in that music, she found Bessie Smith. That voice did not sound careful. It did not sound obedient. It did not sound like someone asking permission to hurt. It sounded like a woman turning pain into power in real time. That mattered to Janis, because Bessie Smith was not singing around the wound. She was singing through it. Janis heard something in that voice that she had not heard in the people around her. Truth. Not polished truth, not church bulletin truth, not the kind of truth adults like to tidy up and put away. Real truth. The truth of longing, the truth of humiliation, the truth of wanting to be loved and still surviving when love fails you. For Janis, Bessie Smith was more than a singer. She was proof. Proof that a woman could sound broken and powerful at the same time. Proof that pain could be art. Proof that being too much might actually be its own kind of beauty. That is why Bessie mattered. She was not just an influence. She was a doorway. Before Janis found the stage, she found Bessie. Before she found the scream in her own voice, she found the ache in someone else's. And once she heard it, something in her life changed. Because when a person feels alone long enough, the first voice that truly understands them does not just entertain them, it rescues them. Bessie Smith rescued Janis Joplin long before the world ever heard Janis sing a note. By the late 1960s, Janis Joplin was no longer the outsider nobody noticed. Now the world noticed everything. The hair, the laugh, the bottle, the wildness, the pain in her voice. The way she could step on a stage and make a whole crowd feel like they were watching someone tear open her own heart and survive it in public. But fame did not erase where that voice came from. Janis never forgot Bessie Smith. That mattered because fame often makes people selfish. It can make them believe they invented themselves. It can make them act as if the stage began with them. But Janis understood lineage. She knew her voice had ancestors. She knew there were women who sang pain long before the rock world learned how to applaud it. And then came the discovery that turned admiration into something deeper. Bessie Smith, one of the greatest blues singers who had ever lived, had died in 1937. A giant voice, a foundational voice, a woman who had helped shape American music itself. And yet, for decades after her death, her grave remained unmarked. No stone, no permanent tribute, no proper public sign saying, "She was here." Think about that for a second. A woman could help change music forever and still be left in the ground without a marker. That is bigger than neglect. That is cultural amnesia. That is the world taking what it needs from a woman's voice and then failing her body once the applause is gone. Janis understood the insult of that immediately, because in a strange way, it was the same insult she had known all her life. The insult of being underestimated. The insult of being seen only partially. The insult of being consumed and then not fully honored. Bessie Smith had given something extraordinary to the world, and the world had let her lie in silence. An unmarked grave is not just an absence of stone. It is the suggestion that memory can be optional, that the dead can disappear if enough time passes, that a woman's suffering can feed the culture while her name slowly fades from the places that should protect it. Janis could not accept that, because she knew what Bessie meant, not academically, not abstractly, personally. To Janis, Bessie Smith was not a chapter in music history. She was part of her emotional bloodline. And once Janis knew the grave had been left unmarked, it stopped being a fact. It became a wound. In 1970, Janis Joplin decided to do something about it. Not with a speech, not with a tribute performance, not with a dramatic public campaign designed to make herself look generous. She did something more permanent. She helped pay for Bessie Smith's gravestone. And she did it with Juanita Green, a woman who had loved Bessie in life and also wanted her remembered in death. That detail matters, because this was not Janis trying to claim Bessie. It was Janis joining memory where memory belonged. Woman to woman, voice to voice, love to love. The gravestone they arranged was simple, but it carried enormous weight. It said, "The greatest blues singer in the world will never stop singing." That line feels almost unbearably moving when you think about who Janis was, because Janis understood exactly what it meant. Singing does not end when the body ends. A voice survives in the throats it changes, in the people it rescues, in the younger women who hear it late at night and realize, maybe for the first time, that pain can be spoken instead of swallowed. Maybe Janis did not know how little time she had left. Maybe she did. Maybe some wounded people always know, in some private corner of themselves, that time is not promised. Whatever she knew, she still took the time to honor the woman who had helped make her possible. That is the beauty of the act. It was not flashy. It was not a stunt. It was gratitude in material form. A stone where there had been none. A name where there had been silence. A refusal to let one of the great mothers of American music remain forgotten by the ground that held her. And maybe there was something else in it too. Something Janis may never have said out loud. Maybe when she helped place that stone, she was also talking to herself. Talking to the lonely girl from Port Arthur. Talking to the part of herself that still feared being laughed at, abandoned, left unloved or misunderstood. Maybe honoring Bessie was also Janis's way of saying, "I know what it means when the world takes from a woman and does not fully honor her. I know what it means to be wounded in public. I know what it means to sing anyway. And I will not let that happen to you without resistance." So she gave Bessie Smith what history should have given long before: a marker, a memory, a visible place in the world. Only a few months later, Janis Joplin was dead. 27 years old, one of the most unforgettable voices in rock history, gone before the world had fully understood what it had in her. And suddenly, the story of Bessie Smith's grave becomes even more haunting, because Janis did not just honor a dead singer. She honored a future version of herself. Not literally, not consciously perhaps, but symbolically it is impossible to ignore. A woman shaped by pain. A woman whose voice changed music. A woman misunderstood by many people while she lived. A woman whose suffering and brilliance would become part of cultural memory. Janis did not know that soon other people would be telling stories about her in the past tense. That soon she too would become myth. That soon audiences would speak of her with the same mix of awe, sorrow, and distance that they once reserved for lost blues figures. But that is what makes the gravestone story so devastatingly human. Before Janis became an icon to be discussed, analyzed, framed, and remembered, she was still a fan, still a daughter of the blues, still a woman grateful to another woman, still someone who believed memory should have a body, a place, a stone, a sentence that says, "This voice mattered." That is the emotional core of the story. Janis Joplin did not just inherit from Bessie Smith, she gave something back. And in doing so, she created one of the most beautiful, invisible threads in music history. A black blues empress from the 1920s, a white rock singer from the 1960s, two wounded women from different worlds, two voices built from suffering, two artists who knew that singing could be both a release and a scar. And for one brief moment in 1970, their stories touched in the most physical way possible. Not in a duet, not on a stage, but in stone. That is why this story matters. Because it reminds us that music is not just made of hits and fame and spotlights. It is also made of inheritance, of gratitude, of one voice carrying another voice forward. Janis Joplin did not leave Bessie Smith in silence, and because of that, this is not only a story about death, it is a story about remembrance. Maybe that is the real meaning of this story. Not just that Janis Joplin loved Bessie Smith, not just that she paid for a gravestone, but that she understood something many people never do. A voice is a kind of inheritance, and inheritance carries responsibility. Janis knew her voice did not come from nowhere. She knew the scream in her songs had a mother somewhere in the blues. She knew the emotional courage people praised in her had been lived by women who came before her, often with less safety, less recognition, and less mercy from the world around them. So she did what memory asks the living to do. She answered. She made sure Bessie Smith would not remain hidden beneath an anonymous patch of earth. She made sure the woman who had once reached her through music would also be reached by history. And maybe that is why the story still hits so hard. Because we live in a world that forgets easily. Especially when it comes to women. Especially when it comes to wounded women. Especially when it comes to artists whose pain was consumed more eagerly than their humanity was protected. But Janis refused that kind of forgetting, and in that refusal, she gave us a different kind of legacy. Not just songs, not just performances, not just myth, but reverence, a gesture of love across time. A young woman once saved by a voice becoming, for one moment, the guardian of that voice's memory. If this story meant something to you, subscribe to the channel, because here, we don't just tell the stories of famous people, we tell the human moments that made them matter. And if you could choose one artist from the past whose memory deserves to be protected forever, tell me in the comments. Because maybe the greatest tribute we can offer the voices we love is refusing to let them vanish.